Yep.
I am going to hit start, and it's 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we're ready.
Hold on. That wasn't that loud, was it? All right, try. Welcome everybody to our wonderful Scotchy Bourbon Boy podcast. Bardstown Bourbon Co. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. But if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. Welcome everybody. We are the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We have a special guest tonight with us as far as the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, or actually a couple. But we have Super Nash. He has returned for another podcast.
Super Nash. Oh, yeah.
I'm Tiny, and this is Young Nose Johnson.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing, Tiny?
We are here.
How are you?
We are here in Kentucky, which is
Bardstown.
Yes, Bardstown, Kentucky, and it's so far this is day 2, and it's just been completely better than we thought it could ever be. We just finished up a tour with Steve and Nick, and I got that right that time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then Greg Snyder is also here from, he's the consultant and major person involved in making chicken cock whiskey and overseeing it. So we are so excited to have you guys here.
Yes,
Thank you, guys.
very much excited.
Thank you for inviting us
Thank
out.
you for the tour and everything. That was awesome.
Glad you guys could join us again.
Yeah.
A pleasure to have you at Bardstown.
Yeah.
So Nick, when we were taking that tour, remember I said you got to remember what you said? Well, you could probably start off with that.
Start off with brief history of Bardstown Bourbon Company. And brief history because we just now hit our 4-year anniversary mark. So we started distillation up in September of 2016, and we ran 4 days a week, 2 10-hour shifts, and produced about 1.5 million OPGs a year. 8 months into production, we decided to go ahead and double capacity, and that looked at putting 8 more fermenters in, and we went to 24/7 operations. 1 year later into it, we went ahead and decided to double capacity again. So that involved adding another cooker. We added another 36-inch column still, and we also added 16 more fermenters for a total of 32 fermenters on site. And we also adjusted our beer gallons a little bit. We were putting in 375 bushels of grain before and went up to 425. And so this year we're looking at producing 7.2 million proof gallons, which would make us the 7th largest whiskey distillery in the United States. So within the first 2 years, we quadrupled in size, which is unheard of in this industry, and we've really hit the ground running, and that speaks a lot to the team we have here at Bardstown Bourbon Company.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just definitely the whole thing you guys are doing is just so complete. You know, you're taking an industry that is just, you know, the history behind it, but then you're taking the modern, you know, technology of what's going on, and then combining them together to be able to produce a good amount of whiskey, that's for sure, but also, you know, age it and do it and get it all into and do it right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, not just a lot of whiskey, but good whiskey too.
Good whiskey, that's right. And that's where you get into me and Steve. We got Steve, the history of it, the knowledge. I mean, he's done it for what, 48 years now. So that's the history right there. I mean, that is some history.
I'm just a pup.
And-
42 years, so.
Yeah.
But we don't want to give up the quality in it, that's forefront on the whole thing. And, to capture the quality and do the precision of it too. And to have, we've grown now, we have, I think it's 27 customers, and we do, during the year, we'll do 50 recipes. So, in the industry, that's unheard of by anybody.
Yeah, for sure. Greg, walk us through the partnership between Bardstown Bourbon Company and Grain and Barrel Spirits to produce the chicken cock.
Yeah, so when the founder of Grain and Barrel Spirits asked me to be his master distiller, chicken cock, we needed a place to make our whiskey. Of course, Grain and Barrel is a small company; they don't have their own assets, their own distillery. But I'd worked previously with Bardstown Bourbon Company in another position that I held with a different company. And so Steve and I go way back. We've been friends for many, many years. And when they first started building the distillery, I actually reached out to Steve and negotiated a contract with this other company I worked for. So I was familiar with him. And when Monty and I started talking about his vision to resurrect chicken cock back to Kentucky, of course, Bardstown Bourbon Company was the first company that I thought of. And so I connected Monty with him. We came down, we negotiated a contract, and it's great. It's one of those perfect collaborations. They have a collaborative distillation program, where essentially what it boils down to is we use their equipment, their people. I provide them with the mash bill and some of the work instructions as far as time and temperatures for cooking, different specifications for fermentation, distillation. And then I also select the barrels that chicken cock is aged in. And so when they produce our whiskey, our chicken cock bourbon and rye, I come down and spend a few, number of hours with them getting the process going. It actually takes, since they run 24/7, it takes into 3 days to make what we're producing right now, soon to be into 6 days for this coming year, because we're doubling our production. But I can't stay here for 72 hours or longer. So basically, I'm here for the first several mashes that they produce and pump to the fermenters to make sure they get specifications right and get the process going.
As you go about the process, do you tweak it a little bit, like the temperature or whatever?
We did from the first batch that we made in August of 2018. Those barrels, we'll get to taste some of that. It just turned 2 years old just last month, but. From the first batch, we learned a couple of things. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that we actually adjusted the set temperature a little bit and some of the cooking instructions as far as, some of the enzymes that we help the process along. So, but yeah, just not a lot, but just tweaked it just a little bit from the things that we learned. The first batch that we did, essentially what happened was that we didn't get the level of alcohol we probably should have, the yields. Typically, good, outstanding yield is like 5.2 proof gallons per bushel of grain. Okay, I think we were right at 5 or just under 5, and I knew we could probably do a little bit better than that. So we adjusted to set the set temperature a little bit lower, or actually a little bit higher, to get it activated quicker and create that. So we're aging or fermenting for 72 hours. So within that time frame, what you try to do is you want to try to convert all that fermentable sugar as much as you can into alcohol. And what happens is they take ballings, which is basically the sugar level at the end when they drop it to the beer well. And so that kind of told us that the ballings were still a little bit high. But the last couple of batches, the one we did in 2019 and the one we did this in March, the beer chemistry was spot on. Perfect.
That's
excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one thing we pride ourselves on as far as our process is that the customer has as much say as they want to. And they can come in and work along with our operators, be as much of a part of it. And by doing that, it can be their product. They can come in and have hands-on, and they can promote, this is my product. I'm coming in and help make it. They don't have to have the expense and the structure to have the distillery. They can have it right here and be their product and still have the hands-on.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting. Based on what you just said, it almost sounds like it's like a franchise type situation rather than one. So instead of having 100 different Bardstown Bourbon companies with people using your equipment and you're putting it elsewhere, it's all in one place, it's just the customer comes to you because you're doing that. It's a totally unique.
We sat down with them from the time we started talking to them, and they have input on grains, yeast, enzymes, barrels, fermentation processes, condenser temperature, any part of it that deals with production. And then as Greg said, when the process starts and they want to make a tweak to it or a change to it, they have that right to do so because it is their product and they can make that adjustment on the fly while it's being made.
Right.
So my question is, so you're making, what was it, 27 different customers, and how does that affect the Bardstown Bourbon Company bourbon as far as you have to be learning a huge amount of information based off of all the other customers, and then you're making your own bourbon, or you have a specific thing you want to do with yours and that doesn't really affect it?
Well, we have a specific thing we want to do, but some customers we have, we can also learn from them. We have high-level customers that come in that they actually train us to develop their product. They'll bring their team down and they will train us to taste their product, to profile their product, to develop what they want. So, they will train us and we can learn from them. So it's not just a one-way street. We'll have customers high level that train us, and then we'll have customers come in that really have no idea what they're doing, and we will train them. So it works both ways.
Yes, you got to be able to pick up. You guys are learning a lot, and that just has to improve your own product too. Just by trial and error.
Yeah, and I mean, I make a lot of the mash bills here and deal with most of the customers day to day, and I can tell you, I've been in the industry for almost 9 years now. In my time at Bardstown Bourbon Company, I've learned more than ever before, and that's because of every day I'm getting to run different processes, different mash bills. So anywhere from 100% American single malt, wheat whiskey, rye bourbon, wheat bourbon. I mean, you name it, corn whiskey, with 50 different recipes ran. I've learned a tremendous amount because I've dealt with a lot of grains that I maybe never would have got to deal with at other facilities. Like I said, a lot of facilities might run 3 to 5 different mash bills. So being able to run 50 mash bills, I've learned a tremendous amount of information from that, which has only improved our process and all of our collaborative partners' process along the way.
That's amazing. It's a pretty cool thing that you guys are doing overall. I know that we were talking last night. We did a podcast with Randy Grassi, the Kentucky Bourbon Festival president CEO now, and he's looking for kind of how to modernize the festival, but maintain the history when he promotes it. And I think the Bardstown Bourbon Company is the modernization also with preserving the history. So it's kind of like coming up with what you guys did. If you could put that into a poster that says what you did, you can capture what's going on in the whiskey industry.
Well, that kind of goes with our tagline. We have a tagline that says we're the modern distiller of the American spirit. That just kind of tags what we're doing. We probably are one of the most sophisticated processes in the whole industry, and we have to be to keep our customers up to speed on what's going on, keep our processes up to what's going on, and how to keep them going, how to keep them streamlined.
Are you guys one of the biggest collaboration distillers out there? Or
We are really the only totally collaborative distilling.
When it comes to custom production, definitely. So there are some other ones out there that produce for other people. A lot of different
they're
distilleries
contract
produce.
still.
They
They're
contract,
contract
but
this is the collaborative.
and I refer to a lot of them being kind of like a restaurant. You go in, you get a menu. It might have 5 mash bills on there, and you pick one of them. You come to us, we sit down and we talk it out. What are you looking for? And like Steve said, you've got some customers that have never done any of it before, and then you've got some that has Greg's expertise that knows all kinds of information, exactly what he wants to do, and he's involved throughout the whole process. So, it's just a different ball game on the custom distillation, because if we get somebody in that has never done it before, we want to make sure that we make a product that they're proud of and they want. So we'll start off with a tasting. We've got all these different rye distillates, wheat distillates, different ones that we brand that they can try to see what it is that they like. And then if they pick one that they really like and that's what they're leaning towards, then we'll sit down and say, well, this was this mash bill, this is how it's produced. We can change certain percentages for the percentages you want, and we'll show them how to build out through the entire process so they get a product that they're really proud of.
I imagine by y'all doing this that y'all have really brought some companies to life that probably would have been going under.
Yes,
because of that.
Definitely, and especially the smaller craft distillers.
Yeah.
That don't have the cash flow in place to be able to put say a 36-inch column still in play and increase production, add all the labor, all the cost of the grains coming in and everything. And like I told you all before, we have some small customers that come in the whole process that might run 8 fermenters that takes us not even a full day, and that 1 day of production is more than they're able to produce in an entire year.
Yeah.
So that improves their business tremendously in the future to come.
And there's another kind of a point that plays into this is a few years ago there was excess product in the market. Other distilleries had excess product that they put on the market for sale. That's dried up. That's no longer available. So they cannot find this. So they in turn to us.
So we've been drinking too much whiskey then.
No, you haven't been drinking enough. Those
Keep
people
drinking.
are now turning to us to produce for them. Somebody like Kevin Hill or Jim Beam or Barnes or whoever would have product that they would just sell to a broker, then they would turn around and sell to whoever to put in their bottle and put on the market. That's not available anymore. Probably the biggest one that has product now is one in Indiana. And they just can't make enough anymore. And like Nick said, they have 5 recipes that if you want product, you pick from that recipe. It's kind of like, if you go to a restaurant and order a steak, you get whatever they have in the refrigerator back there. If you come to us and order the steak, we have to go out and buy the cave and raise the cave up and get the certain steak you want.
That's
very good. I've never heard anybody say that.
Sources and everything, right?
You generate the steak you want.
That was a pretty intense analogy.
Did you have any questions?
Well, some of the questions that I had were already too
if you have one, let's do that before we continue.
But there is one more that kind of goes along. You had already mentioned the tagline of the modern authentic bourbon experience. I guess just in terms of your personal perception, what does that mean to you? And then the other half of the question is, and how are you using that technique to be unique in such a famous area of music? We already touched on that.
Yeah, a little bit, and like I said, I think you see it as soon as you pull into our campus. We're kind of a breath of fresh air on the Bourbon Trail. Not the other distilleries that they're historic. They've been here for some of them over 200 years, and they're still beautiful. But when you come here, it's almost reference kind of Napa Valley experience. That it's a campus, a full destination experience. That with the restaurant, the bar, the tourism, the patio.
The patio is like that's not a bourbon, but it is. It's the Bardstown Bourbon Company, but it's just so modern. It's kind of like we want to bring in the new Sinatra.
And then just look.
I'll sing for you later.
I know we're on the podcast, so the ones on the podcast can't see us, but on the Facebook Live they can see us.
Oh, yeah.
Look where we're sitting right now. We're sitting in a bar in a warehouse. And that's how different is that? You're not getting this at other facilities that you come in and do the tours. A bar in the warehouse that looks amazing, and then just on the other side of us, we can see all the barrels out in the warehouse where we do our single barrel tastings. The tourists get to come in, they get to pull the bung out of a barrel, taste speed directly from the barrel. Different experiences. And right here in this corner, we're putting in a hand bottle filler right here to add to that experience. We're always looking to add to the experience, to do something innovative and new for the consumer and guest to come here.
Well, it's funny because last week when I was watching the World whiskey tasting competition.
World top whiskey.
And it was Sam, right? She was in here. She was in this room, okay? And I was looking at it, and I'm just thinking, that's the coolest room. And I knew I was coming here to do to do this podcast, but I did not put two and two together that I would actually this next weekend or week would be here in this room. So it's kind of spectacular.
Put a little bit of different twist on what Nick was talking about. 48 years ago when I started, 42 when Greg started, we did basically the same thing. We just had less sophisticated instruments. We had hydrometers that we did volumes with. We had acid nitrators we tested. We did basically the same thing. Today we have more sophisticated equipment that we can track, all of this, and we can replicate it. If we track the chemistry of the process and keep good records of it, then we can replicate it day after day after day. When you're doing 7, 8, 10, 12 million proof gallons a year, you've got to keep really, really close track records of it to be able to replicate. So, that's the big difference of the process now versus 40 years ago when we did that.
Well, every time that I come to Kentucky, and one of the things I love about coming to the distilleries, and when you go back to Ohio, even if you go in a craft distillery there, the smell of the rick house or the fermentation room or when you're cooking, they're just so, I just find them to be something that it's part of the process and it adds to drinking the whiskey, but I love it. And it's like, no matter how much I smell it, I can't get enough of it. So now that you've been in for a little bit compared to it
9 years is a lot of some people, but it doesn't compare to the ones 40 plus.
But after 40-some years, do you still love that smell?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's so wonderful. You were just, and then when you've been away from it for a while, you go back into it, you just realize how rich that smell is, and that's just something that I don't know how much longer I can not live in Kentucky.
When you come into the distillery in the morning and see the fermenter bubbling, you see the product flowing out of the tail boxes in the steel tower, it's just almost like a breath of fresh air. It's just so relaxing to me, and it's been that way year after year after year, and that's just what's been so pleasant to me to keep me involved in. It's just been
It becomes a part of your DNA, part of your makeup.
Yeah.
It is.
All right, well, are we ready to do some tasting?
Okay.
We can,
I think that's
we
an
can get
easy
to
question to answer.
Yeah. We're ready for the
Yes.
tasting.
Yeah.
While we're getting the pours going, I do have one more question. So the collaborative program aside, what is the main product of Bardstown Bourbon Company? And do you have any new brands or experimentations that you may be working on?
Yeah, I mean, me and Steve will both hit on a little bit. I'll hit on some of the mash bills we've done, and then Steve can hit on some of the finished products, we came out with as far as main products. The very first mash bill we ran here, night one, was one that Steve created, and Steve's a wheat guy. All those years of Maker's Mark and everything, he likes his wheat. So our main mash bill is a 68% corn, 20% wheat, 12% malted barley, which Steve Gray, he, like I said, loves the wheat, so he got me loving it too. I'm a big fan now as well. But that's our first product we ran, one of our main mash bills. We've got a 36% rye. When we get into our fusion tasting, you'll get us introduced to both of these, not standing alone by themselves, but as younger bourbons fusion with the more mature bourbon. So you'll get a little dabble of it. But we've also ran recipes. Me and John Hargrove, our COO, created one. When Steve was out on vacation, we slipped one in there on him. But used wheat just how he likes it. So we've got a nice a high wheat bourbon recipe that will be one of our flagships we'll come out with. We've ran the 100% American single malt recipe. Recently, I designed one that is a Kentucky Proud certified product. So everything in that was sourced raw materials from Kentucky. So the grains, all three grains were from Kentucky. Even the barley was grown. It was malted in Kentucky. All the oak from the barrels came from Kentucky. The cooperage was in Kentucky. So the entire process, and I even partnered with Kentucky Proud and got certified that the Kentucky Proud logo was actually on every barrel out in the brick house and will be on the bottles as well. And I plan on doing a different mash bill, but underneath the Kentucky Proud every single year to come. So
That was the next brainchild.
That'll be a really neat one. And so we've got a lot of other, we've got a 4-grain Bloody Butcher recipe we've done as well. So we've got multiple mash bills that we'll be able to play with for the years to come. But when we're ready for some of them to stand by themselves, the first ones will be that 20% wheat that Steve did and the 36% rye, because those are, one, our oldest products that we did at the very beginning, and two, that we've done all along that we really enjoy. So.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you. Exciting news. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah.
And two of the products that we have right now, one is the Fusion that has our product in it. We started that product to introduce product we had distilled here at Bardstown Bourbon. So we played around with blends. We actually started out with 52 different blends, and we didn't do it as a distilling team. We wanted to incorporate everybody. So we had distilling team, we had culinary team, we had beverage team, marketing team. Everybody at the distillery worked as a team. And we've done that on all of our collaborations, all of our plans and everything. So we worked through that. We rated on a scale. It's an old Seagram's rating system that 1 to 5, 5 being the very best, 1 being pretty much garbage or throw it out. And then we narrowed it down.
We don't get any more.
26, 12 to 6 to down till we got to the final one. And it ended up being 60% of our product, which was less than 3 years old at the time. So we had part of it was 21% or 20% wheat, part of it was 36% rye. And again, it was less than 3 years old. So we were very excited about this. We did Fusion 1 at that. So next year we replicated the same percentages, but our product was a little older. It was right at 3 years. I think wheat was 3 years, the rye was just under
2 year, 11, and a 3 year on wheat.
So, it was getting a little bit older. So the thought process behind that was that we would have Fusion till we grew our product to get old enough to stand on its own. This year, it was a little over 3 years, so it's getting there. We now have a product that in September, which is now, we have a 4-year-old product here. So it's coming. We're thinking probably 6 years is going to be about the release. Not guaranteeing it. Don't get excited.
And that's the benefit of our collaborative program as well. You see a lot of the craft distillers, other ones like that might release product too early, or flavored white dogs, 2-year-old product that might not be ready. It could get a bad name out there for them. So what we did, we just released one to get, an introduction to it, but with our collaborative program, 27 different customers, we have cash flow coming in as we're waiting on our stuff to age. So that way we can come out with ours when it's standalone, when it's ready. When, me, Steve, John, the whole team here, says, oh my gosh, this is ready, this is good, that's when we'll release it. So we're in no rush. We want it to be the best of the best when it comes out versus rushing just to be able to get some cash flow in.
Plus, you guys have to not buy any bourbon. You have 27 customers, and you just have to. I mean, if you're working at one place, and you just have a brand, and you might go out and try other, but you have other people's bourbons already, and so many of them. I don't know if you can even start to work on other.
Well, they just don't let us take their bourbon.
Well, no, not taking it, but the amount that you're producing. I mean, within the, you're getting enough.
Yes.
I'm not saying you're taking their bourbon, but you can buy their bourbon, but at the same time, you're making it, you probably want to know what it tastes like out of the bottle.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we support all of our customers as well. The Chicken Cock, their bottles are in our retail, so we're their home. So we want to promote them and get their name out just as much. So we sell their bottles in our retail shop because they're one of our partners. So we're going to support them as much as possible.
This is a home Chicken Cock.
Yeah. No, this is the distillery. I mean,
We are allowed to sell
Where I got my
all of
first
our
product.
customers. We can sell our products here.
and and just think about just when someone comes here now, it's not just more than 27 different distilleries, to buy the product. I mean, eventually you're gonna have to make that your gift shop a lot bigger.
I think you're right.
Once it all starts to come in, you're getting the single barrels and all that. Think about that.
Well, our other product we have discovered, that's solely not any of our products. You know, we purchase all of that on the open market, so that shows the art of blending. You know, we buy product.
Exactly. Okay, good. I thought something we're leaking.
We're good.
We're not leaking.
We are in a warehouse, but there's no leaks coming down on top of us right now.
That big. But, you know, it's solely product that we purchase. It's on the open market. You know, a broker will buy product from surplus from a distillery, and we will purchase from him. So we will buy product out of our inventory. We will take it the same way we did fusion. We will make blends, and we'll go through the tasting process, elimination, and decide on the discovery. And then we will put that in the bottle, put it on the market.
Which is a really cool aspect of the maturing of the bourbon. You know, like 5-6 years ago when I first started getting into this, it was almost like a finished bourbon. You could get yelled at for it. Like that when someone was finishing a bourbon, well, that's not Kentucky straight bourbon. That's not bourbon. We need bourbon, you know. And now the finished bourbons are coming out, and everybody's loving them because so everybody's into that. But now you're starting to see the blending, like you're talking about, and blending is a skill to really be able to do it. And the Scotch, you know, the Scotch makers have known this from the start, you know. But when it came down to bourbon, you know, we're going to that next level.
Well, there's one confusion too, that a lot of people think if you blend two different bourbons together, it's not bourbon anymore. That's not right. You can blend bourbons together as long as you don't blend different types. Right. Bourbon and whiskey or something. It's still a bourbon. Right. So, you know, we've done that.
Right. Now, can you do a wheat bourbon with a rye bourbon?
Yeah,
it's
a
still a
bourbon.
bourbon.
Still a bourbon. That's what, yeah, and that's, I think that's a market that would be completely untapped at all. So that, you know.
So, you know, we've done that, and we have introduced our third discovery, and they've all turned out great. So, you know, that's happened.
On the Discovery, do you use the big team like you do on the Fusion?
We use the team on everything we do.
That's great. That's great.
The philosophy of that I love. I mean,
Yeah.
Steve has a great palate. I have a great palate. There's multiple, our quality control, Travis, Dan Calloway. We have great tasters here, but if you have, say, a master blender that comes out with one product, they're the ones that blend it, they're the ones that did it. That's just touching his palate. His palate could be completely different from everybody else's. It could be way more sophisticated or maybe not as well, you never know. What we do, everyone can submit their own blends and everything. It's all done blind. We'll do 5 at a time, room full of silence, and everybody is judging these. And like Steve said, a high score moves on. And once we get to the final rounds, whoever's in charge of the blind blends, they might throw products of competitors on the shelf. You know, different bourbons or finishes in blind, and we don't know when we're doing the tasting, but we're judging what could be our future product versus one that's already on the bar that's a well-known name. So, and we're taking a collective of anywhere from 10 to 25 different people to the best product that moves forward. So it's covering a wide range of palates, and we're coming out with, the whole team's coming out with a product. It's not just one person that, a master blender, I did it all. It's a full team effort, and that's how we do everything here at Bardstown Bourbon. It's a team effort, and it's not just the distilling team on those. You've got, like Steve said, the culinary team, the bar team, we have HR, admin, I mean, anybody that wants to be involved can be involved, whether they drink bourbon every day or never had it. You're touching more palates and going to get a better average and a better product at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you could contract with the Scotchy Bourbon.
Yeah.
We welcome anybody's opinion. The more opinions you get, the better view you get of it.
All right.
And we get collaborations we do with finishes, and we've done several with wine barrels, we've done some with beer barrels, we've done cognac, we've done several different barrels. And, you know, a process that really we fell into, we've done a couple with Copper and Kings through some brandy, but probably the one that we really learned more on was the first one we did with Piper Navitt. We did one with Suzanne Piper Navitt. She sent some wine barrels out here. She sent 2 to start with. The first 2 she sent out, she just emptied them in California, put them on just a conventional semi-trailer, shipped them out. It took them about 2 weeks to get them here. They got here, we opened the truck up. They were at ambient temperature. Opened the barrel up, they were dry. There was nothing to them. So we said, you can't do anything with these. So we called Suzanne up and said, what we're gonna do with these? There's nothing here but dry. There's no fragrance to them. There's nothing there. So we talked with her for a while. We said, what if, do you have any more, first of all? She said, yeah, I've got some more I can empty. So we said, what if, leave a little bit in them, leave the leaves in them, whatever, just leave a couple of gallons in it. You want all this stuff left in them? Yeah, just leave it all in there. So she agreed to leave a little in it, gas them with argon gas, to evacuate the oxygen out of it, what oxygen does to wine. Wrap them up, put them on a refrigerated trailer, express ship them across the United States, get them there as fast as possible. Damn, it's going to be expensive. You sure you want to do that? Yeah, let's try it.
Bring it on.
So she agreed to do that. She sent 15 barrels. So we got them in here. As soon as they arrived here, we opened them up, filled them with bourbon, put them in the warehouse. Left them for, I think, about a year. We went and pulled some samples. Didn't like what they were doing, so went back. We sent her some samples. She didn't really like them. Went back about 4 or 5 months later, pulled some more samples. Still wasn't satisfied. We ended up about 16 months. We thought, these are coming along. Let's leave them just another month or two. So at 18 months, we thought, this is what we want. So at 18 months, we decided to bottle it, and we came out with a really nice product. So everything's been kind of modeled after that. So right now, everything's pretty much 18 months, and we partner with whoever we do it. So the Pfeiffer Pavitt, Suzanne Pfeiffer's logo's on the back. On the front label is Pfeiffer Pavitt Winery. Everybody we do, we partner with them. So whoever we partner with, you know who it is. We don't just say we use the wine barrels or something. We partner with
We promote their name as well, and a lot of the decal on the back as well. The deco on the back of the bottle usually is their logo as well, so we can see through that bourbon on the back of the bottle, like on Pfeiffer Pavitt, he was saying it's a cowgirl, and she was known as a cowgirl, so it's got a cowgirl on the back of the bottle. Copper King's got the big and symbol on the back of the bottle. So
That's awesome. We could probably sit here for the next couple hours
Oh, yeah.
just talking bourbon. And
let's taste some of Greg's.
Let's taste some of Greg's rendition of chicken cock.
A lot of people said I'm not a good listener. I thought I did pretty good.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we're going to sample some chicken cock. What I thought would be interesting is something unique. I'm sure you guys, I don't know if you've done a tasting like this previously or not, but since this is the home, this is the distillery that chicken cock is made now. I thought I'd kind of walk you through the processes. As you guys are aware, the mash bill is 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley. And so this is a distillate that was actually produced this past March. If you recall, in March we laid down 600 barrels of bourbon. And that was the bourbon that I actually went out a year ago, a year ago May, and actually hand selected the logs. Oversaw, those staged the heading, sat out in the yard for about 10 months before we actually made the barrel. Went back out to West Virginia and oversaw the barrel making process. Came here, we made the bourbon, and then after it was fermented and distilled, we filled those barrels. So this is a distillate that went into those barrels that hopefully we'll get to taste in at least another 4 years from now.
Yeah. What about the 6 months?
So it's going to be next week actually. It turns 6 months next week, so I'll be back down here probably in October sometime, or a week tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
You can always come back.
That's right. So anyhow, what I want you to smell are this. You had a tour of the distillery. Nick was gracious, and Steve, to give you guys a tour and kind of explain the process. We come off the low wine at 120 proof, high wine at 130 proof. So we don't add a lot of water to cut it down, because this is going to a barrel at 125 proof. And what I'm trying to do is capture the characters of the grain. So when you smell it, I mean, again, this is 125 proof. And then you put it to your lips.
You know it's 125 proof. It's not disguised like 125 like aged bourbon. It's just basically 20.
This is so good, guys. I don't know how much distillate you've drank over the years. In 42 years, I've tasted an awful lot. And I'm telling you what, this is about as good as it gets. You're making a rye bourbon, you can taste that corn, you can taste that rye, you can taste that malted barley. And that's the characters you want, I mean, when
It's so sweet.
it is. And we talked earlier, there are some companies that actually, to be a bourbon, one of the criteria is it has to be distilled at 160 proof or less. Okay, in order to maximize the I guess the amount of whiskey they're getting per bushel, some companies are distilling it up to the 160 proof. Everywhere I've worked, I've fought against that, because what you're doing is you're stripping all this great flavor out. You know, it's just like making vodka. You know, the higher proof you distill it off, you're stripping all those flavors out. So again,
Yeah.
I think this is ideal.
You're not trying to make an odorless, tasteless.
Exactly.
You want that flavor, that character. As you said before, you know, if you put bad whiskey in a barrel, I don't care how great that barrel is, it's going to be bad whiskey.
Yeah.
If you put good whiskey in a bad barrel, same thing, it can come out not so good. If you put good whiskey, as good as this is, into a good barrel, oh my goodness, and you give it the proper maturation, it can be fantastic. So again, I kind of want to walk you through the process. So this is the fresh distillate we made this past March. It went in the barrel, and again, you can taste the grain characters. So
There's a minty taste to it.
there's that little minty taste. I'm finished. I get that as well.
Breath freshener.
There you go.
There you go.
It's that rye, a little bit of that
Yeah,
spice,
yeah.
a little
Yeah,
bit.
exactly.
I refer to it a little bit like.
Tastes like
Yeah.
corn first.
Yeah, you know,
that
it's-
spicy pepperness of rye.
It's funny too. I don't know, you know, with all the mash bills, you guys, you know, people talk about high rye bourbon, and to me, 21% kind of is high, but there's some that go higher. You know, when I worked at Wild Turkey, you know, they use 13% rye, so it's not near as high, and a lot of companies don't. You know, they stay in the, you know, the 10 to 18 range or whatever. So the next step I wanted you to taste is the product we laid down in 2019. Okay, so the bourbon we made in 2019, just last month, turned 18 months old. So again, I want you to taste the next step, and I taste this every 6 months. Okay, all of our bourbon that we laid down, all of our whiskey, I actually taste it every 6 months. So I kind of wanted to walk you through this, through the transformation, because it's amazing. People, you know, that haven't worked in the industry don't really realize the process it goes through. Okay, so if you look at it, it's really picked up some good color in 18 months.
It doesn't, I've never, it's beating at the top, but it's staying.
Yeah,
sticking
you're not
to
seeing the
edges.
legs.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty thin stuff. So, you know, when are you getting on the nose? And
Lots of butterscotch.
corn, and butterscotch, okay.
Got just a little bit of butter.
I'll give you corn and butter.
Corn and butter.
Nice.
I'm getting some of the smokiness of the barrel as well, on the early end, early on the taste on the top.
Wow, caramel. This is after 6 months?
It's 18 months.
18 months, okay.
18.
A year and a half. You're getting the caramel on the front. I get the caramel. That's nice.
And so, again, during the tour, you remember I talked about barrel breathing, okay? And again, that's what you're trying to do. During the process, that barrel's got to breathe. Oxygen, you know, white oak, even though it won't leak, it's semi-permeable, okay? Whiskey and alcohol, water will evaporate out of the barrel, and oxygen gets into the barrel. And that oxygenation or that oxidation process is critical in maturing good whiskey. You know, you're creating, with the oxygen coming in there, it interacts with the alcohol and the acids, and those molecules bond, creating esters. Okay, so it's the esterification and transesterification that during the maturation process, it builds up flavor, some of these characters that you're picking up, and then later on they get destroyed and then they get recreated. So it's an evolution, an ongoing transformation of flavors throughout that process.
What's the proof of this barrel strength?
I think it's right at 124, I think it was.
It should be close.
Right, it was close to 120. It was 124 point something. So.
You can probably look it up on your computer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it'll lose just a little bit when you first put it in the barrel.
It will.
Come back up.
Yeah, and it depends on where it's located in the warehouse too. I think this, if I'm not mistaken, is on the second floor of the warehouse. The first batch that you're going to taste next, which is 2 years old, is I think on the fourth floor, and the ones that we just laid down in March were actually on the fifth floor. So, you know, the higher, the faster and the higher proof. What happens is the water molecule is smaller than the ethanol molecule. Okay, and so typically in the hot temperatures of the upper floors of the warehouse, you know, the ethanol, also the ethanol vapors are heavier than air. So it settles, all the ethanol, when it evaporates out of the ground, it settles on the lower floors. So you got a lot of humidity, cooler temperatures, like alcohol bath on the lower floors. When you go to the top floor, it's extremely hot, much hotter than it is outside, and the humidity is low. And so what happens is that water molecule will find its way out, and the proof will actually increase. So on the lower floors, it's kind of converse to that. What happens is you got the humidity, you got all those ethanol vapors laying around, and so the water molecule doesn't want to go out because it's equilibrium. You already got moisture out here, and so the alcohol molecule, the ethanol molecule, will find its way out, and so the proof will actually decrease.
So the smell of the angel's hair, the angel's share, is usually more prevalent on the bottom floors, right?
When you walk into a warehouse, you're walking in on the bottom
you're
floor.
walking, that's where you
That's
can
where all
smell
the
it, but
vapors
if you
are.
go higher up, it's not as prevalent.
Oh, you'll smell it. No, you still smell it.
I've never been up, been at the top, always on the bottom.
It gets so hot you don't notice it.
If we have time when we get out here, we'll walk you up to the top.
Okay, I'll stay at the bottom and let you walk up. So let's try the next rendition. So this is the first bourbon we laid down out here, and it just turned 2 years old in August. You can see it's a little bit darker color already. Yeah, and it really has started to really pick up some beautiful amber color, and it's just 2 years old. Yeah. Again, put your nose in that and tell me what you get, because again, it's so much different.
I'm starting to get caramel.
Ah, yeah, caramel. I get a little chocolate. Yeah.
Chocolate. Still getting a little corn.
Yeah. Just got a little greenness to it. Okay. But I'm starting to pick up some flavors that
You
really
said this was
really nice.
2 years?
So this is 24 months as of last month. So.
On the top of the glass, I'm getting a little chocolate, a little bit. It's like sweet, that's sweet. It's like a milk dunk. You just right at the top there. I just find it amazing when sometimes you're tasting and all of a sudden you taste something that you never thought you could taste, or like I was at the distillery and we were it was aged in rum barrels, the bourbon,
Right.
and I was tasting like a strawberry. Did you ever have one of those strawberry candies where it's wrapped
Still
in
not that strawberry.
paper strawberry, and then that
Hard candy.
and I was getting that like full out, like even in the finish, I'm just like, wow, strawberry, where does that come from? You know, kind of thing.
Well, that esterification, all those esters, that's where you get a lot of your fruity and floral notes, is through that esterification process when the oxygen gets in the barrel. Some of those esters are created in the fermentation process as well, but most of it is actually generated during the maturation process.
And on the taste, you get that, you're getting a dry oak from
Absolutely.
the barrel
Yeah.
right now on this that you were not getting before.
You still got some greenness to it.
Right.
But as it matures, again, I'm trying to, wanted to show you the transformation, the steps of the distillate, 18 months, 24 months, and again, this is 2 years from now, hopefully we'll start bottling this.
Yeah,
Once
you
it gets
start
4
to
years old,
tell
we're going to start
the state of the
bottling.
flavor,
It's
start to
it's
pick it up.
progressing the way I would want it to.
So the youngness is kind of like when you're getting when you're getting some of the oak, it's a little bit bitter, but as you keep going further, then it'll start to be a little bit sweeter.
Yes, sir.
Because of
Absolutely.
that's that. When you're talking about that greenness, whereas then when it starts to mature, that's when the sugars really start to kick in and make it sweeter.
Yeah, again, you got to remember, these barrels were all toasted and they were charred number 3 level char. And so in that process, that charring of the barrel works like a charcoal filter. You know, as the temperatures heat up and the air expands in that barrel, it pushes that whiskey into the wood and it passes through that char layer. Well, it's like a charcoal filter. It'll strip out all that graininess. The distillate you tasted, all that corn, that rye, malted barley, that's when it starts stripping that down. It's picking up the caramel and vanilla substance from the hemicellulose lignin that was converted during the toasting process, picking up those sweeter flavors and nicer phenolic compounds that you wanted.
I mean, like, it serves 2 purposes. It's filtering, but then it's caramelizing the sugars of the wood right at that point. But then you also pick up the sugars of the wood that are in it already. But It's kind of like your Christmas. When you cut the bottom of your Christmas tree off, all of a sudden it'll absorb all the water. But if you don't char it, then the wood's going to have a barrier that's going to be harder to pass.
Yeah, and basically that's what happens. At charring, you're basically blistering the surface so you can penetrate it easier.
Right.
Number one, and get into all those great flavors that are the caramelization and the vanilla flavors that are inside the wood that have been toasted and converted, and then pass it back out and let the cooler temperatures come out.